The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I walked into the conference room that Tuesday morning. 14 years. That's how long I'd given my life to advanced dynamics. I'd missed birthdays, anniversaries, and countless weekends perfecting designs in this same building. Now Daniel Krell, my boss, sat at the head of the polished table with that smug smile I'd grown to hate. "Claire, thanks for coming," he said, sliding a folder across the marble surface. "We're restructuring the engineering department. Your position has been eliminated." My hand stayed steady as I opened the folder, but my heart hammered against my ribs. Severance package. Gag clause. Something about intellectual property rights that made my stomach twist. The words blurred together as Daniel droned on about market conditions and unfortunate circumstances. I looked up at him, this man who'd taken credit for my innovations for years. "I need time to review this." His smile faltered. "Claire, this is generous. Most people would sign immediately." "I'm not most people." I stood, tucking the folder under my arm. "I'll be in touch." Walking to my car, I felt the weight of those 14 years pressing down on me. But something else stirred beneath the shock, a quiet anger that would soon change everything. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was cleaning out my home office. Sarah Martinez, my former coworker and one of the few genuine friends I'd made at Advanced Dynamics, sounded breathless with excitement. "Claire, did you hear? The company just landed a massive deal. $20 million for some revolutionary green engine technology. Everyone's talking about it." My coffee mug slipped from my fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. "What kind of engine?" "Some micro-turbine thing. Super efficient, apparently. Daniel's been strutting around like he invented it himself. The whole office is buzzing about bonuses and promotions." I sank into my desk chair, staring at the wall where my engineering certificates hung. My micro-turbine design. The one I'd sketched in my garage on countless Saturday mornings. The one I'd casually mentioned during that brainstorming session 8 months ago. "Claire, you still there?" "Yeah," I whispered. "I'm here." After hanging up, I sat in the silence of my empty house. The pieces clicked together like gears in one of my machines. The hasty layoff. The unusual IP clause in my severance. Daniel's satisfied smirk when he handed me that folder. They'd stolen my idea, and they'd made $20 million from it. That night, I couldn't sleep. By 3 a.m., I was hunched over my laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard as I searched the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office database. The familiar blue glow of the screen hurt my eyes, but I kept scrolling through endless technical documents. Then I found it. Patent number 11,034,567. Microturbine engine for enhanced energy efficiency. Filed 6 months ago. Inventor Daniel Krell. Assignee, Advanced Dynamics Corporation. My hands trembled as I clicked through the technical drawings. Every curve, every specification, every innovative detail. It was my design. The one I'd spent a year perfecting in my garage workshop. The one that had kept me awake nights. Not from stress, but from pure excitement about its potential. I scrolled to the filing date, May 15th. 3 months after I'd presented the concept in Daniel's conference room. 3 months after I'd watched him nod dismissively and mutter something about interesting possibilities. The description read like poetry, my poetry. Words I'd written in my private journal, equations I'd derived through months of trial and error. But Daniel's name sat at the top like a crown on a stolen throne. I printed every page, my ancient printer wheezing through dozens of technical sheets. Tomorrow, I'd start building my case. The next morning, I pulled my old engineering journals from the basement storage boxes. Dust motes danced in the sunlight as I opened the leather-bound notebook I'd started 18 months ago. Page after page of sketches, calculations, and late-night revelations stared back at me. Entry number 47, March 3rd, breakthrough on turbine blade angle optimization. Efficiency increased by 23%. Entry number 52, March 18th. New bearing system design, friction reduced significantly. Every innovation Daniel had claimed was documented here, timestamped, and detailed. My careful engineer's handwriting filled hundreds of pages, showing the evolution of an idea from spark to reality. I photographed each relevant page with my phone, then moved to my computer. Email, timestamps told the same story. Messages to my friend Lisa, discussing the project. Photos of prototype parts I'd ordered online. credit card receipts for materials purchased with my own money. The evidence was overwhelming, but as I stared at the mountain of proof, doubt crept in. I was just one person against a corporation with deep pockets and expensive lawyers. David versus Goliath felt less inspiring when you were David. Still, I couldn't let this stand. Not after 14 years of watching Daniel steal credit for smaller innovations. This time, he'd gone too far. Monday morning found me in the waiting room of Hartwell & Associates, one of San Diego's most prestigious law firms. The leather chairs cost more than my monthly mortgage, and the receptionist's smile was as polished as the marble floors. "Miss Whitmore? Mr. Hartwell will see you now." James Hartwell looked exactly like central casting would order for a corporate lawyer. Silver hair, expensive suit, and a handshake that could crush coal into diamonds. I spread my evidence across his mahogany desk like a poker player revealing a royal flush. He listened politely as I explained the theft, nodding at appropriate moments. But his expression never changed from professional sympathy. "Miss Whitmore, I understand your frustration," he said finally. "But you were an employee of Advanced Dynamics. Unless specifically exempted, any invention created during your employment belongs to the company. But I created this at home, on my own time. With knowledge gained during your employment, it's a difficult case to prove." He slid my documents back across the desk. "My advice? Take their severance offer and move on." The second lawyer said the same thing. The third actually laughed. Walking to my car after the last rejection, I felt the weight of impossibility settling on my shoulders. But deep in my chest, that quiet fire still burned. That evening, I sat cross-legged on my garage floor surrounded by boxes of old contracts and employment documents. My original hiring paperwork from 14 years ago lay scattered around me like pieces of a puzzle. There had to be something. Some clause, some loophole, some forgotten detail that could help my case. Hours passed. My back ached, and my eyes burned from reading fine print by the garage's harsh overhead light. I was about to give up when a single paragraph on page 12 of my employment contract caught my attention. Section 8.3, Intellectual Property Exemption. Inventions created independently by the employee, using personal resources and personal time, without use of company equipment or proprietary information, may be exempt from automatic assignment to the company upon proper disclosure and documentation. My heart hammered as I read it again. Proper disclosure and documentation. I remembered filling out that form. HR had required it for any outside projects, even hobby work. I'd submitted mine 8 months ago, right after my first breakthrough. I rushed to my computer and logged into the employee portal with my old credentials. The system still granted me access. Typical corporate oversight. I navigated to the HR documents section and searched for my disclosure form. Nothing. I tried different search terms, different date ranges. Still nothing. The form I definitely submitted had vanished from the company's records, like it never existed. But I kept copies of everything. My home filing cabinet revealed its treasures reluctantly. Years of organized documents, tax returns, insurance papers, and yes, employment records. Near the back, in a folder labeled Work Misc, I found it. My invention disclosure form, filled out in my careful handwriting. Date submitted September 15th. Description: micro-turbine engine design for enhanced energy efficiency. Company acknowledgement stamp, received, HR dept. I also found something else, a confirmation email from the HR system, automatically generated when forms were submitted. The timestamp proved I'd disclosed the invention months before Daniel's patent filing. My hands shook as I photographed everything. This was it. Proof that I'd followed proper procedure, that the company had been notified of my independent invention, and that someone had deliberately removed the documentation. The next morning, I called my old friend Tom from IT. We'd worked together on several projects, and he owed me a favor from when I'd helped debug his kids' science fair robot. "Tom, I need a huge favor. Are employee communications backed up on any external servers?" A long pause. "Claire, you know I can't access that stuff anymore since you left." "What about archived Slack messages? I know the company uses a third-party vendor for compliance storage." Another pause. "Hypothetically, those backups exist, and hypothetically, they might contain messages that were deleted from the main system. But I could lose my job for "Tom, they stole my invention, $20 million worth." The silence stretched between us. Finally, he sighed. Give me a couple days. While waiting for Tom's response, I decided to seek better legal counsel. A friend had mentioned a retired IP attorney named Simon Vestal, supposedly brilliant but reclusive since leaving his high-powered firm 5 years ago. I found his address through public records and drove to a modest house in La Jolla. The garden was immaculate, and classical music drifted through the open windows. Simon Vestal answered the door in paint-splattered clothes, looking more like an artist than a lawyer. Miss Whitmore, I don't take cases anymore. I know, but I think you'll want to hear this one. I spent an hour detailing Daniel's theft, showing him my evidence. His expression shifted from polite disinterest to sharp attention as I mentioned advanced dynamics and Daniel Krell. Krell, he repeated, setting down his coffee cup. That bastard cost me a client in 2018. Brilliant young programmer who developed a revolutionary algorithm. Krell buried the disclosure paperwork and claimed the idea as his own. What happened? My client had no proof of independent development, Krell's word against his. The company's lawyers destroyed him in court. Simon's eyes hardened. But you have documentation. Will you help me? He smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. I can't represent you, I'm retired, but I know someone who can, and I'll guide her every step of the way. The someone was Marissa Clay, a 32-year-old IP attorney with fire in her eyes and a reputation for taking on impossible cases. Marissa's office occupied the 20th floor of a downtown high-rise, but her space felt more like a startup than a law firm. Whiteboards covered every wall, filled with case timelines and legal strategies that looked like battle plans. Simon filled me in, she said, not bothering with pleasantries. This is either the most righteous case I've ever seen, or professional suicide, maybe both. She studied my evidence with the intensity of a detective examining crime scene photos. The disclosure form is gold. The timestamps are even better. But we need more. What kind of more? Witnesses, documentation of the theft, proof that Krell knew about your disclosure and deliberately suppressed it. She leaned back in her chair. We're not just fighting Daniel Krell, we're fighting Advanced Dynamics, their insurance company, and probably the firm that bought your patent. They'll have armies of lawyers. So you won't take the case? Marissa grinned. I didn't say that. I love David and Goliath stories, especially when David has really good documentation. Over the next 2 hours, we planned our strategy. We wouldn't seek ownership of the patent. That would be nearly impossible to prove. Instead, we'd demand inventor credit, damages for theft of intellectual property, and ongoing royalties. It's not about the money, Marissa explained. It's about precedent. If we win, every engineer in America will know their work can't be stolen without consequences. That night, I called my sister in Portland. Jenny, I'm about to do something that might destroy my career. Good, she said without hesitation. It's about time. Tom's package arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered by courier with no return address. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. These are archived Slack messages from the company's compliance backup. Officially, this doesn't exist. Good luck. I plugged the drive into my laptop with trembling fingers. Thousands of internal messages populated the screen, searchable by date and keyword. I typed Claire invention and held my breath. The first result made my blood run cold. Daniel Krell, Sept 16th, private channel. Claire submitted some disclosure form about a turbine thing, removed it from HRQ before review. No need to complicate things. Jordan Walsh, Sept 16th, smart move. That idea has potential. Daniel Krell, Sept 16th. My idea has potential. Claire just provided some inspiration. More messages followed, documenting Daniel's plan to develop his invention while keeping me focused on other projects. One message from December made me physically ill. Daniel Krell, Dec 3rd, patent filing submitted. Claire's little garage project is about to make us rich. I printed everything, my hands shaking with rage. This wasn't just theft. It was premeditated fraud. Daniel had stolen my work, hidden the evidence, and bragged about it to his cronies. Marissa's reaction was swift and decisive. This changes everything. We're not just seeking damages anymore. We're exposing criminal fraud. Our legal strategy crystallized over the following weeks. Marissa filed a civil lawsuit seeking inventor credit, monetary damages, and injunctive relief to stop further exploitation of my patent. The complaint read like a thriller novel, detailing Daniel's systematic theft and cover-up. News of the lawsuit rippled through San Diego's tech community like an earthquake. Industry blogs picked up the story. Engineer sues former employer over $20 million patent theft. The comment sections exploded with similar stories from other inventors who'd been silenced or ignored. Daniel's response came through his lawyer, a predictably arrogant statement dismissing my claims as baseless allegations from a disgruntled former employee. He offered to settle for $200,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. That's insult money, Marissa explained. He's trying to make this go away cheaply. I didn't hesitate. Absolutely not. Good, because I found something else. She slid a folder across her desk. Remember that programmer Simon mentioned? The one Krell screwed in 2018? He's willing to testify about the pattern of behavior. Marcus Chen had been an AI developer at Advanced Dynamics until Daniel stole his machine learning algorithm and claimed it as his own innovation. Unlike me, Marcus had lacked the documentation to prove his case, but his testimony would establish Daniel's history of theft. There's more, Marissa continued. I've been digging into Volterra Innovations, the company that bought your patent. Their CEO is getting nervous about the legal exposure. Our case was building momentum, but Daniel wasn't finished fighting. The countersuit arrived like a slap in the face. Daniel claimed I had stolen company trade secrets, violated my employment agreement, and engaged in corporate espionage. His lawyers demanded $5 million in damages and a permanent injunction preventing me from working in the industry. Classic intimidation tactic, Marissa assured me, but I could see concern in her eyes. He's trying to make defending yourself so expensive that you'll give up. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, document requests, and legal maneuvering. Daniel's team tried to paint me as a bitter ex-employee who'd fabricated evidence to support false claims. They questioned every timestamp, challenged every document, and suggested I'd somehow hacked company servers to plant incriminating messages. But they made a crucial mistake. They underestimated my preparation. During discovery, Marissa's team demanded access to Daniel's computer files and email records. His lawyers fought the request, claiming executive privilege and confidentiality. But the court ordered limited disclosure, and what we found was devastating. Metadata from Daniel's files showed he'd copied my technical specifications directly from my original presentation slides. His invention contained text strings that exactly matched my private journal entries. Entries he could only have accessed by stealing my disclosure form. Even better, his email records revealed coordination with Volterra's executives to rush the sale before any potential complications could arise. He knew this day would come, Marissa said, reviewing the evidence. That's why he was so eager to get your patent sold quickly. Volterra Innovations' stock price had been sliding since news of our lawsuit broke. Tech analysts questioned whether the company had performed adequate due diligence before spending $20 million on potentially stolen intellectual property. The pressure reached a breaking point when Volterra's board of directors received a letter from their largest shareholder demanding answers. The letter, leaked to the press, accused company leadership of reckless acquisition practices that exposed investors to massive legal liability. Volterra's CEO, Rebecca Santos, called an emergency board meeting. According to sources quoted in tech blogs, the discussion was heated and contentious. Some board members wanted to fight alongside Daniel to protect their investment. Others demanded that Volterra distance itself from the scandal before it destroyed their reputation. Santos chose a third option. On a Friday afternoon, Volterra filed its own lawsuit against Daniel and Advanced Dynamics, claiming fraud and misrepresentation in the patent sale. They demanded return of their $20 million plus punitive damages. Beautiful, Marissa said when the news broke. Now Daniel's fighting a war on two fronts, and Volterra has every incentive to cooperate with our case. The corporate bloodbath was just beginning. Advanced Dynamics stock dropped 12% in after-hours trading as investors realized the company faced multiple lawsuits that could result in massive financial penalties. Daniel Krell had stolen my idea to get rich. Instead, he was about to lose everything. Daniel's deposition took place in a sterile conference room downtown, with 6 lawyers, 2 court reporters, and enough tension to power a small city. I sat quietly beside Marissa, watching the man who'd stolen my work squirm under oath. Marissa started with gentle questions about company policy and Daniel's role in patent filings. Daniel answered confidently, his voice carrying the same arrogant tone I'd endured for years. He described himself as a visionary leader who encouraged innovation throughout his department. Then Marissa shifted tactics. "Mr. Krell, are you familiar with Advanced Dynamics Invention Disclosure Policy?" "Of course. All employees must disclose outside inventions to avoid conflicts." "And how are these disclosures processed?" "HR reviews them and determines if the company has any claim to the intellectual property." Marissa slid a document across the table, my disclosure form. "Do you recognize this?" Daniel's confidence flickered. This appears to be a disclosure form, submitted by Claire Whitmore on September 15th, describing a microturbine engine design, the same design you later patented under your own name." "I don't recall seeing this specific form." "Let me refresh your memory." Marissa produced the Slack messages. "These are internal communications from your private channel, discussing Miss Whitmore's disclosure and your decision to remove it from HR review." The blood drained from Daniel's face as he read his own words, admitting to theft and fraud. "Do these messages accurately reflect your actions, Mr. Krell?" I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination." The deposition was over. Daniel had essentially confessed on the record. Word of Daniel's deposition disaster spread through Advanced Dynamics like wildfire. Employees who'd once feared him began sharing stories of his abusive management style and credit-stealing habits. The company's HR department launched an internal investigation, terrified of additional lawsuits. Meanwhile, Marcus Chen's testimony added devastating context to Daniel's pattern of theft. Marcus described how Daniel had systematically isolated him from other team members, stolen his algorithm documentation, and then fired him when he tried to protest. "He told me I was too junior to challenge company decisions," Marcus testified. "He said if I caused trouble, I'd never work in tech again." The judge listened intently as Marcus detailed the emotional and financial devastation of having his life's work stolen. His story gave human dimension to corporate theft. This wasn't just about patents and money, but about crushing the dreams of brilliant innovators. "Your Honor," Marissa argued during closing statements, "this case represents a fundamental question about justice in American innovation. Will we allow corporate executives to steal ideas from the very employees they're supposed to nurture? Or will we send a clear message that intellectual theft has consequences?" Daniel's lawyer offered a half-hearted defense, claiming his client had made errors in judgment, but arguing that company policies protected him from personal liability. The judge wasn't buying it. During a brief recess, she pulled both legal teams into her chambers. "Gentlemen, ladies, this case is going very badly for the defendants. I strongly suggest you consider settlement negotiations." The settlement talks took place in a neutral conference room, with mediators from both sides working to find middle ground. Advanced Dynamics wanted to limit their financial exposure. Volterra wanted their money back. Daniel wanted to avoid criminal charges. I wanted justice. My client will accept $8 million in damages, full inventor credit on the patent, and 15% ongoing royalties, Marissa announced. Daniel's lawyer nearly choked on his coffee. "That's absurd. We could settle this for a fraction of that amount." "Your client committed fraud," Marissa replied calmly. "Miss Whitmore is being generous by not demanding full ownership of the patent." The negotiations stretched over 3 days. Advanced Dynamics Board of Directors, facing pressure from shareholders and the threat of additional lawsuits, pushed for resolution. They'd already fired Daniel and publicly distanced themselves from his actions. Volterra's representatives were equally motivated. Their $20 million investment was worthless if they couldn't legally use the technology, and their stock price wouldn't recover until the legal cloud was lifted. On the 3rd day, we reached an agreement. Advanced Dynamics would pay me $6.5 million in damages. I would be officially credited as the sole inventor of the microturbine patent. Most importantly, I would receive 12% royalties on any commercial use of my technology. But I had one more demand, one that surprised everyone in the room. I want Advanced Dynamics to establish an innovation protection fund for employees. Any engineer who believes their ideas have been stolen should have access to legal resources. The settlement was announced on a Tuesday morning, sending shockwaves through the tech industry. Trade publications ran headlines like "Engineer Wins $6.5 in Patent Theft Case" and "Corporate IP Abuse Exposed in Landmark Settlement." But I didn't want a media circus. At Marissa's suggestion, I agreed to one exclusive interview with Tech Week magazine, focusing on the broader issues of intellectual property protection rather than personal revenge. This was never about money, I told the reporter. It was about establishing that innovation belongs to innovators, not to executives who steal credit for other people's work. The interview generated hundreds of supportive emails from engineers across the country. Many shared similar stories of stolen ideas and suppressed innovations. A few mentioned they were considering legal action after seeing my case succeed. Daniel Krell, meanwhile, had vanished from public view. Advanced Dynamics announced he'd resigned to pursue other opportunities, but industry insiders knew he'd been fired in disgrace. His name was quietly removed from the company website, and his LinkedIn profile disappeared entirely. The scandal had effectively ended his career in corporate technology. No reputable company would hire an executive with a documented history of stealing employee innovations. For me, vindication felt better than any amount of money. My name was finally attached to my invention, and the world knew who had really created the microturbine technology. With the legal battle behind me, I faced a new challenge, deciding what to do with my settlement money and newfound freedom. The royalty payments from my patent would provide ongoing income, but I wanted to do something meaningful with the lump sum. I'd always dreamed of starting my own company, a place where innovation would be celebrated and protected, where brilliant minds could develop breakthrough technologies without fear of theft or exploitation. Using $3 million of my settlement, I purchased a renovated warehouse in San Diego's emerging tech district. The 15,000-square-foot space would become VectorSpark, a clean technology incubator focused on helping other inventors turn their ideas into reality. My first hire was Marcus Chen, the programmer whose testimony had been so crucial to my case. His expertise in AI and machine learning would be invaluable for evaluating promising technologies. We also recruited 2 experienced engineers from other companies, both women who'd faced similar challenges with male-dominated corporate cultures. VectorSpark isn't just about making money, I explained to my new team during our first company meeting. We're creating a safe haven for innovation. No one's ideas will be stolen here. No one's contributions will be minimized or ignored. The incubator model would provide workspace, funding, and mentorship to early-stage inventors, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds. We'd take small equity stakes in successful companies, but our primary goal was fostering breakthrough technologies that could benefit society. Our first batch of incubator participants arrived 6 months after opening. Among them was Maria Rodriguez, a brilliant chemical engineer who developed a new water purification system, but lacked resources to commercialize it. Another was David Kim, a recent MIT graduate with revolutionary battery technology that could triple electric vehicle range. Most inspiring was Jennifer Walsh, a 28-year-old mechanical engineer who'd been laid off from her previous job after refusing to sign over rights to her clean energy innovations. Her solar panel efficiency improvements could reduce renewable energy costs by 30%, but she'd been blacklisted by her former employer. They told me I was difficult and not a team player, Jennifer explained during her interview. Translation: I wouldn't let them steal my work. I saw myself in her story. The frustration, the isolation, the sense that the system was rigged against honest innovators. VectorSpark could give her the platform she needed to prove her technology's value. Within 3 months, Jennifer's solar panel prototypes were attracting attention from major renewable energy companies. Unlike her previous employer, we ensured she maintained ownership of her intellectual property while providing the resources to develop it. This is what engineering should be, she told me after signing her first licensing deal. Collaboration without exploitation. The success stories multiplied. Our incubator became known throughout the tech community as a place where brilliant ideas could flourish under ethical leadership. 2 years after our legal victory, I received an unexpected phone call. Rebecca Santos, CEO of Volterra Innovations, wanted to meet for lunch. The company had recovered from the patent scandal and was looking to expand their clean technology portfolio. "Claire, we made a mistake," she admitted over salads at a downtown restaurant. "We should have worked with you from the beginning instead of buying stolen technology from Daniel Krell." Volterra had eventually obtained proper licensing rights to my microturbine design and had successfully commercialized it for industrial applications. The technology was generating significant revenue and environmental benefits, reducing energy consumption for major manufacturing companies. "I have a proposition," Rebecca continued. "We want to offer you the position of Chief Technology Officer. Full equity package, unlimited research budget, and complete authority over our innovation pipeline." The offer was tempting, a chance to lead a major corporation and influence clean technology development on a massive scale. But I'd found something more valuable at VectorSpark. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I'm not interested in returning to corporate life. However, I'd be happy to discuss partnership opportunities between Volterra and our incubator companies." Rebecca smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. We've been watching your work at VectorSpark. Several of your portfolio companies are developing technologies we'd love to license." The conversation led to a formal partnership agreement. Volterra would get first licensing rights to promising technologies developed at VectorSpark, while our inventors would gain access to commercialization resources and global distribution networks. The Clean Energy Conference in Las Vegas was the industry's premier annual gathering, attracting thousands of engineers, investors, and corporate executives. I'd been invited to speak on a panel about intellectual property protection, a topic that had gained urgency following several high-profile theft cases. Walking through the exhibition hall, I marveled at the innovations on display. Solar panels that could generate power from moonlight, wind turbines that operated silently in urban environments, battery systems that could store renewable energy for weeks. Near the back of the hall, almost hidden between major corporate displays, I spotted a small booth labeled Krell Consulting. My steps slowed as I recognized the man behind the table, older, grayer, but unmistakably Daniel Krell. He was pitching some kind of energy efficiency consulting service to a disinterested attendee. His booth materials looked cheap and hastily assembled, a stark contrast to the polished presentations surrounding him. A few scattered business cards lay on the table, mostly ignored by passing conference-goers. Our eyes met across the aisle. For a moment, time seemed frozen. Daniel's expression shifted from surprise to shame to something that might have been regret. He looked away first, suddenly fascinated by papers on his table. I continued walking, feeling neither anger nor satisfaction. Daniel Krell had become irrelevant, a cautionary tale about the consequences of stealing other people's dreams. My focus was on the future, not the past. That evening's panel discussion drew a packed audience of engineers and executives eager to learn about protecting their innovations. I shared the stage with 2 patent attorneys and a venture capitalist, but the moderator directed most questions to me. "Miss Whitmore, what advice would you give to inventors who suspect their ideas have been stolen?" "Document everything," I replied. "Keep detailed records of your development process, timestamp your communications, and never assume good faith from corporate executives who profit from your work." What about employees who are afraid to challenge their employers? Fear is understandable, but silence enables abuse. The system only changes when we're willing to fight for what's right. And remember, you're not fighting alone. Organizations like the Inventor Rights Foundation now provide legal resources for cases like mine. The foundation had emerged partially as a result of my case, funded by settlements from other patent theft lawsuits. Engineers across the country now had access to legal support when confronting corporate IP abuse. After the panel, a young woman approached me with familiar desperation in her eyes. "Miss Whitmore, I think my boss stole my algorithm design. Do you think I have a case?" I spent 20 minutes reviewing her documentation and connecting her with appropriate legal resources. Her situation was remarkably similar to mine. Brilliant innovation, systematic theft, and deliberate cover-up by corporate management. This won't be easy, I warned her. But it's worth fighting for. And you have something I didn't. Precedent. 5 years have passed since Daniel Krell stole my invention and tried to destroy my career. VectorSpark now occupies 3 buildings and has helped launch 47 successful companies. Our portfolio includes breakthrough technologies in renewable energy, water purification, sustainable manufacturing, and environmental remediation. The Innovation Protection Fund at Advanced Dynamics has handled 12 cases of suspected IP theft, providing legal resources to employees who might otherwise have been silenced. 3 cases resulted in significant settlements, while others led to policy changes that better protect inventor rights. My microturbine technology is now used in manufacturing facilities worldwide, reducing industrial energy consumption by an estimated 15%. The royalties have made me financially independent, but more importantly, they've funded additional innovation through VectorSpark's expanded programs. Daniel Krell's consulting business failed within a year. According to industry sources, he now works as a mid-level manager at a small engineering firm in Phoenix, a dramatic fall from his former executive status. His career never recovered from the scandal, and his name remains associated with corporate theft in engineering circles. I don't feel satisfaction from his downfall. His story serves as a reminder that talent and integrity matter more than corporate politics or stolen credit. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's building something so successful that they become irrelevant. Standing in VectorSpark's main laboratory, surrounded by brilliant inventors working on technologies that could change the world, I know I made the right choice. I could have taken that corporate executive job and returned to the traditional path. Instead, I chose to create something better. Innovation belongs to innovators. Justice delayed is not justice denied. And sometimes, the biggest career mistake your enemy makes is underestimating your quiet determination to fight back.